All right, trying to see if this will work. I need to move some things around in terms of lighting. I wonder better. Let's get back here. Is anybody here? Is anybody watching? If you're watching, give me a heads up. Tell me what we look like. I'm kind of previewing what we're going to ultimately be doing here with Bryan Coley. Not sure how great this is going to function. I need to move this. Hello. Might be able to kind of catch some of that with Bryan. This one's just going to start early. Hey,
Good, man.
I'm just practicing a little bit about how this is going to work. I'm not sure how your audio is going to end up coming through to these other platforms. So right now I'm currently on YouTube and I'm set up for Facebook, and I kind of got a few different angles going on.
Okay.
On Facebook Live, I think I'm actually going to be able to fit our conversation in. I'm looking at that right now. It'll look like this. And so I'll be able to see questions coming in from there. And I've got YouTube over here kind of in front of me.
Okay. So I've got, what I've got is my phone up here. Where am I? Where is it? Yeah, so I'm going to see camera in front of me. So this was, the only thing I don't know what's going to happen is Instagram as far as orientation.
So for Instagram, we have to be up and down, I think. And so,
Be up and down?
yeah. So I think
Okay,
like I'll have to hold like this for sure, and you'll have to call in like that. But this way I should be able to stream it on all three platforms. And like I said, I meant to bring a speaker in. I just totally forgot to grab your audio. Trying to think of what I could do. I don't have time to go get anything. It'll just have to be what it is.
Okay, for some reason now the camera's not. Oh, here. Oh, it's using the top camera. Dang it. See if I can flip it.
Trying to think of how I could broadcast your audio. I wish I had a speaker. Dang it. Bryan, why don't I remember a speaker?
So you need a speaker or two.
Well, I kind of wanted to pump out your audio a little. I just don't really have a way to do it, honestly. I just forgot. I meant to bring a Bluetooth speaker, and I just forgot. It's fine. I mean, there's nothing I can't. I mean, I can't get your office before 1:30, so it's fine. So maybe I'll just mess around a little bit and see who gets on and see what they think about your audio, and then I can brainstorm it from there. Let me. I'm going to start. Nobody's really on. I'm on YouTube right now. I'm streaming on YouTube through our link right now. I'm going to share it really quick to Facebook. Really doesn't matter. People can go on Facebook if I'm on Facebook.
So all I'm doing is waiting for you to get on Instagram, correct?
Yeah. Instagram will be the easiest way for people to sort of interact with the interview. The good news is I can save it, and so that's helpful at least. And I can post it if I need to. About to do an interview with is genius too? Is that right or too much? How do you feel?
No, I think that's right. That's right on. I don't know why you're hesitating.
Self-proclaimed genius. Is that good?
Don't need to hesitate. Just go ahead.
Modern day Hitchcock.
No, nothing about filmmaking, please.
Film guru. That's what I'm going to go with. Guru. Did Houston call you?
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of a snafu that happened. So we had a big snafu that happened where his flight was canceled. Susan drove to the airport to make sure he was getting on an airplane. And it ended up being even better because he got a direct flight. So he'll be here 5 hours before he was supposed to be.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I told him to call you.
Yeah, did he call you?
No, we were texting yesterday, and so I said, you need to, after I talked to you, I was like, you need to call your parents.
Right.
Well, you can take the youth pastor out of the church, but
You can't take the youth pastor out of the youth.
you can take the youth out of the pastor. I don't know how that works.
That's happened. Yeah, that'll happen.
All right, I'm posting that. All right, I'm going to go live for a minute and just see sort of what happens. Cool?
Live where?
On Facebook. And just see what happens.
You're not really seeing me, are you? Are you seeing me?
I see you. You're right there.
What do you mean? But that's FaceTime, right? But you're not broadcasting me on FaceTime to anything, are you?
I am right now. Right now, you see this little tripod right there?
Right.
That's Facebook Live.
Okay, so you need me to look good on this.
No, I don't need you to look good. Nobody can really see you. Somebody's watching. Oh, it's my friend Lindsay again. Lindsay, this in a few minutes it's going to be the real thing, and so you can catch up. Oh, it's my sister, Paula. I need you to do me a favor. Brian, talk for a minute.
Okay, this is me. This is Brian. This is me talking. I'm talking about really cool stuff.
Paula, can you hear Brian talking? Tell me that. Type that if you didn't quit.
Type that.
Can you hear Brian talking? Can anyone hear Brian talking? Brian, talk some more.
Can you hear me? Papa, can you hear me?
This is going well. They're not responding, but that might just be because they quit watching. I'm not sure.
Well, it may be that.
Oh, wait, here she goes. She can't really see him, but she can hear him. You don't need to see him. He's best heard. And that's it. You need to see this. This is the moneymaker of this interview.
Yes.
Not here. There's nothing in here for you. There's only on here. Cool. So we're going to start in a few minutes. I'm going to cancel all this out, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks, Paula. Yeah, it's a bit of a lag. All right. So there is that bit of a lag. I don't love that. So good. They can hear you. So that's good. That's the most important part for me. In terms of that. All right. So we're streaming on YouTube. I don't know how many people are really going to watch it on YouTube. That'll be a good indicator for me of how useful YouTube is. How you doing?
I just don't know how they find you, like there's not like
we sent
this guy went on YouTube Live.
Well, the easiest thing for us is we send that link out. That was the biggest thing I was concerned about, is that on whatever day we said we were going to do this, we sent a link to YouTube for people who only get our newsletter Or like, so we have people, like literally we have people that are like, we don't have a Facebook account, we don't have an Instagram account, and in YouTube you don't have to have an account, and so that's the only. It's all it's basically internal document stuff. So,
I get it.
so I had a pastors meeting today. That was fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun.
What was the Marietta pastors?
No, it was the network pastors. It was like Josh and all that crew. So I'm hoping that I can pull the audio from this too at some point. Anyway, we'll do another one of these. This will be fun to start doing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it's good to learn it.
Yeah.
Maybe a reality not that people want to have after they've experienced it, or it may be a reality they never want to have after they've experienced it.
One of the things I think for us, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how much people long for togetherness after this or settle into apartness. It'll be interesting to see. But one thing I found for us is like, it was a big thing from us early on to talk about how people don't want to, there are people who never want to walk in a place called a church. And some of those people for us that we have relationships with, I mean, we had 145 people watch our stream on Facebook last Sunday. And like a bunch of them are people I know who would never come to church. And so, so I mean, like there's definitely that in terms of advantage. And I think people are dying for something content wise to grab hold of. Like they want to.
Based on our little test yesterday, where it was like moths to a flame.
Yeah.
Going, I'm somebody's going live.
Hold on.
Let me check it out.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
I was thinking I was picking up some weird audio.
You might get feedback. I'm not sure.
No, it's fine. I don't think I'm going to, because I don't think I will. What time is it? 1:18. Okay, so how do you want to do this? Let's talk turkey in terms of the interview. Like I was going to ask questions and let you run. Like I was going to ask you to start out by kind of just laying out briefly, like you probably don't have to go into like the whole story of like how you learned the Oscars work. I mean, I thought you did a pretty good job. I thought you did a fantastic job at the thing at Pinewood, right? Like where you sort of succinctly said, here's the general idea, here's the specific idea. And if you wanted to run through something like that again, and then I could ask questions off of that. Shoes on the other foot now, isn't it, Coley?
I thought that was good. I woke up this morning and I went, this might be a little bit of payback that I didn't realize was happening.
I know this isn't your area, but talk about politically and people voting. Who's God's candidate?
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm going to ask you to decide. Who's God's candidate, Bryan? So is that good? Does that work for you?
Works for me. I think, usually when I talk about it, it's trying to get people to understand that there's a micro version of this, which is what we do on a regular basis, which is allowing people to see that their story is buried within their movies, right? And if that is happening with us on a micro level, then I started looking at it on a macro level and saying, well, could it be the same way with the movies that move us? And then I went to the box office and that wasn't it. And then I realized it was the Oscars that were telling us where we were going.
I wonder.
The thing that's hard about it, as far as how to restrain me, is how much I have to spend time building credibility as to how it's true.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part because people are going to be like, oh my gosh, he's reading tea leaves or whatever, and yet, if you took God out of it and if you just said, wouldn't it make sense that the best artists of our day doing projects without money involved would be highly prophetic? Even that, it seems like it would make sense to people. And then if you created that palette of, well, let's look at the themes of all of these things coming together, which nobody seems to do. Then, anyway.
I think that'd be good. If I feel like there are holes, I'll ask questions. I think it'll be fun.
I'm not worried.
So, All right.
So we need to get off of Facebook. I mean, not Facebook, off of.
We need to get off of FaceTime, and I need to jump on, but we've got like 8 or 9 minutes, so we can jump off, and you can just do whatever you need to do to get ready, and I'll jump on it.
No, I'm good.
I'll jump on Instagram at 1:30, and then wait for you to request in.
Okay. I'm hoping that the screen doesn't. I'm hoping my screen goes the other way, because otherwise it's going to be not cool.
You want to mess with that?
Yeah, we probably should just try it real quick. I don't know if we can.
All right, you want me to hop on Instagram? We'll try that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Just to see if the orientation doesn't flip.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Later, like in 20 seconds. All right, dang it. Why does Instagram always do that? All right, I'm live. Waiting on Bryan Coley. I can't decide hat forwards or backwards. There's a lot of opinions on it. So I think that, hey, Bryan, now you have to request to join me. So far, so good. It's only us. So it's nice. So you have to request to join. Are you going to do that? Can you do that? Yes. There you are. So let's see. You coming up? You should be coming. We're waiting for you. Here we go. We are connecting. What? You're upside down. Why are you upside down? Is this a Stranger Things issue? I can't hear your audio either. This happened last time. Yep, happened last time. Why don't you go out and come back in? Come back in. Try again, Bryan. This is not the official start time. If you're here, we are not starting until this is the test run. But if you come back at 1:30, you will catch the official start time. We just don't know how to test this other than to actually go live. Bryan and I have had some fun the last couple of days. All right, so let's see. We figure this out. Man, you in again. B. Coley. Waiting on Bryan. 10:30, Joe's time. Joey wants you to know 10:30 his time. All right, now we got it. What'd you do? Now I'm getting that great underneath shot. Everybody loves that look. So
I've got to figure out a way to make sure that
should we both broadcast from here? Very sorority girl, to make sure that our profiles look appropriate. I'm wearing my best white t-shirt for this interview.
Here we go.
All right, so you're good?
I think I'm good.
Okay. So, yeah, that's a test. I don't want to start till 1:30 though. I don't have enough interesting things to say.
All right, hold on for 1 second. Okay, that's fine.
I think I'm good. Let me check this angle again from Facebook before you go. Yeah, you're perfect. So my Facebook people will see you pretty well. I'm getting a lot of weird background noise. What are you doing there?
I'm trying to shift the camera so that there's not a projector in my head.
All right. So cool. All right. So we'll hop back on in a couple of minutes. Is that cool?
Okay. The only thing we should be prepared for is that it happens again, right?
Okay. Yeah. That's okay. I mean, that took like 30 seconds to figure out. That shouldn't be a big deal. All right. See you in a minute.
Bye.
Oh, shoot. Ah. Stop it. Mother. Frick. Just work. Darn it. Of course. 2 minutes. All right. Live stream on Instagram. Ready. Facebook. All right. Go down like the president. All right. I am going live here on Instagram. I'm David Scott. I'm the pastor, the lead pastor at Highlands Church. Now I'm going live on Facebook. Popping this up. All right. I think we're live on all the things. Bryan, you coming up? Bryan's coming up. He's connecting. Hey, we did it. All right. We are live on all the things. We are live on YouTube. There you are. We are live on Facebook. There we are.
Hello, Facebook.
And we're live on Instagram with Joey Simon so far. And so my name is David Scott. I am the pastor at Highlands Church and kind of the president, or whatever you would call it, of Highlands Marietta, which reaches out in different ways to the community. And today I'm going live in a variety of ways with Bryan Coley. Bryan is the founder and chief creative artist. Is that right? Officer, chief creative officer. The CCO, not a lot of those, of Real and the Real Experience, which is, I'm going to let Bryan tell you more about that in a minute, but Bryan is with us today. Hey, Lonnie Jones, to talk about movies and how God speaks to us through films, but specifically the Oscars. And this year's Oscars and how God might have been trying to speak to us on what was coming in our current cultural situation. So Bryan, tell them a little bit about Real Tell them a little bit about what you do and send that into talking about the Oscars. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's pretty big, but we'll
That's
try.
fun. You got a lot of time. We got all the time.
So,
We're quarantined.
yeah, exactly. So we stumbled upon this idea through working with writers, where we would ask, before we would commission a screenwriter or playwright, we'd ask them what moved them, and that became their favorite movies. And what we realized real quickly was that their favorite movies was a great place to brainstorm and kind of mine, just different themes and stuff that were coming out of their movies for writing, for them to commission them to write a story. And then when we tried it on normal people instead of artists, it just kind of blew up. People were changing their lives based on the insights we were finding in their movies. And it was just crazy. I mean, we did it with different audiences, with married people, with small groups, with corporations, which we do a lot now. And in each of those cases, I had like 20 years of working in story. We just said, let's just try it. Let's try looking through the lens of character in their movies. Let's look at the lens of desire. Let's look at conflict. And in each time, it was just like this incredible oil well of insight that would come out, and people were just seeing their story buried inside their movies. And for me, that was just a moment, especially over time, I started seeing how that we had lost some sort of language with God. And I guess the way I put it right now is that I think God has always been in the business of motion pictures, like giving us motion pictures. If we think of the Old Testament, he was kind of giving us all these metaphors with Abraham and with Moses, and even using these people's stories as motion pictures for us. And then Jesus, of course, being the ultimate motion picture of what God looks like. And then Jesus came and he spoke in motion pictures, not just, parables, yes, you can think of them that way, but he was giving us things that we could play in our brain, like reels in our brain for us to think about imagery. And so this lost art of metaphor and imagery in the church, I felt like God was bringing to life and just lighting it up for people in a very personal way. So, we never saw a top 10 movie list be the same. And even if you have Forrest Gump and I have Forrest Gump, we saw totally different articulations as to how it hit you. And so it just felt like, that concept that we say Christianity all the time about God wanting a personal relationship with you. Well, when we saw the thumbprint on people's top 10 movies and how he was speaking to them very, very individually, I was like, man, there's something here that's just really crazy, surprising. God speaking through this place we would not expect of movies, but then realizing it was always there all along. That God has always been interested in speaking to us in story, but also more importantly in imagery and visuals.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started, and then we've done Reel for probably the last 7 years, and we've done corporations like for-profit Reel with different corporations from Chick-fil-A to Coca-Cola to Georgia Pacific and all these big companies here in Atlanta we've been fortunate to work with for the last couple of years, So
yeah, it's good. I think it's great. I know you and I have done stuff together with this, but I love, even if we hadn't done stuff together, I love the idea of like God's motion picture to the world is Jesus, right? People say like nobody's seen the Father except the Son reveals him. And so he's constantly revealing the characteristics through his actions. And so God's always used these images to communicate, right? Image of God. I mean, it's ingrained in who we are as humans. And so why not in the images that portray the best and the worst and the most of humanity. So yeah, I love that. It's good. So what about the Oscars? Talk about the Oscars, and then let's talk about this year's Oscars.
Yeah. So then I thought about, well, we're dealing with this on like a micro level, like an individual level. Like if we can find people's story buried within their movies individually, how would this work collectively? Like, could it work collectively? So I started looking at first the box office, and the box office is really, it kind of tells us where we are maybe, but it doesn't say kind of what our story is and where we're headed. So what ended up happening was I think we just got a message from somebody saying that they're not hearing us, or they're not hearing something.
Let me see. I'm okay. I don't see any.
Okay.
We're good.
So I just decided on a micro level, and what I found was the Oscars were, when I looked at the Oscars, that there was a prophetic nature to the Oscars, and it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because just purely, taking God out of the equation, if you think about that, there's a moment in time in which the best artists of our time can make movies that are independent of commerce, right? So all of a sudden, every studio has kind of this slot for an Oscar film, in which it's more about winning the Oscar than it is about getting the box office. And we know that because nobody ever sees the Oscar movies oftentimes. So I thought, well, there's something about that. And then if you do what we were doing, which is we were looking at people's top 10 movies as a palette to work with, not just one movie. Like, we never ask a person, tell us what your favorite movie is, and then we'll tell you everything. It's always the palette of your movies. Like, there's this palette to work with of 10 movies to say, oh, you see it here, you see it here, you see it here. And that's what happened with the Oscars. All of a sudden, I just looked at the nominees for Best Picture and just looked at, well, what are all these movies saying? And it just started just loud and proud saying things that were very significant, and significant themes. And then what was scary was all of a sudden these themes started playing out in society. And this goes all the way back up. This is the 7th year I've done looked at the Oscars. And I can walk you through this if you'd like, but the Oscars predicted Trump, or I like to say foreshadowing, because predicting sounds like it's fortune telling. But I believe God used the Oscars to foreshadow Trump. I believe he used it to foreshadow Charlottesville, what happened there. I believe it foreshadowed the Me Too movement. I believe it foreshadowed the whole wave of women taking positions in government. And then, more importantly, which brings us to this Oscar season right here. You and I were together. One of the things I've been like, I need to bring people into this so that they can validate that I'm not crazy.
You're not just a nut job reading the code, the Bible code. Yeah.
You and I have been texting back and forth, throughout this whole time, where I've been going, remember what we were talking about? Like this is what the Oscars said. And here it is playing out in society right this second with this virus. So, and it's just eerily, very prophetic the way the Oscars spoke into it. Even though I've been seeing this for 7 years, the way it's been happening, but this was almost undeniable that God was kind of using the Oscars this year to be very prophetic about it. So.
Yeah. So, kind of let me summarize. And somebody's saying it's hard to hear me, which I'm the person that you don't need to hear that much on this. And I'm not sure if Facebook would say the same thing or not. Is it hard to hear me, Facebook? Is it hard to hear Bryan, YouTube? You guys are just left where you are. So basically what you're saying is, like, the Oscars, if our top 10 movies are reflective of the way God speaks to us and what God wants to communicate to us, it's touching in our hearts, something that God has placed there, then the Oscars are like America's top 10 movies. And I mean, even if people don't like them or not, culturally, they're resonating with that, with storytellers. And it's the story, it's something, it's not that God is not saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to establish Donald Trump or Me Too or any of those things. It's that God is saying something is happening, and I'm trying. What is God saying in that? He's saying something is happening, but what do you feel like God's saying in that?
Yeah, I really wrestled with that. Like, hey, why would God do this? And why would I be one of the only? Why would I be the one seeing it? That kind of thing, and it not be like it just kind of bothered me that it would be revelation that would happen to a whole bunch of people. And I think that I've had to rest in the fact that there were prophets in the Old Testament that was, their job was just to say, here's what, God's trying to say to our nation, and even I've rested in the fact that Joseph was, interpreting the king's dreams. And sometimes I think this is just kind of interpreting the kings of our land, which is in Hollywood, the dreams that they're having, in order to go, this is what is going to happen within our nation. But I think it's more of just kind of a foreshadowing. If you think of God, I don't know theologically, you're the pastor who would be able to break this down. But if you think of ultimately God knows the script, He's writing the script, He's written the script, depending on what your beliefs are, then I think He's a good script writer. He puts in a setup that is a payoff. He puts in foreshadowing that actually gets paid off. And so when I think of Abraham and Isaac, I think that's great foreshadowing for Jesus, right? And so I think He still, like I just envision God is this wonderful storyteller, right? Who sits there and goes, I think I'm going to foreshadow this using this as a means of having people be prepared if they have eyes to see,
It's good. All right, so that's really good. Let's jump into this year then. So let's go back. Bryan and I did an event, an Oscars event, at the Sunday of the Oscars, which was when?
That was like late January.
Okay. And at that event, you said, this is what God is saying this year. Talk about that in general, and then talk about that with Parasite, which won Best Picture.
Yeah. So what I do each year is I usually, my process is I'll watch the Oscar-nominated movies, and I'll just start seeing themes, and I'll start kind of tallying them up, and saying, okay, and now I've kind of made these kind of circles of saying, here's a theme. It has eight of the movies have this theme. Here's a theme. 9 of the movies have this theme, or something like that. And so I just create these circles of different themes that come together. And the number one theme that seemed to be coming out of all the movies was this idea of devotion being tested. And so if you think about some of the movies, like let's do The Irishman. The Irishman is, he's Robert De Niro's character is being tested as far as his loyalty and to his fellow, to the mob, as well as to Jimmy Hoffa. Or maybe a movie that maybe you've seen, like Ford versus Ferrari. Christian Bale's character is being tested in that movie as far as his loyalty to, Matt Damon's character is being tested as far as being his brother, his friend with Christian Bale, who Christian Bale is kind of just off the rails as far as his lack of social graces. And so he has to kind of decide whether he's going to be loyal to Ford or whether he's going to be loyal to his friend. Same plot with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where, here's DiCaprio's character who's got to decide whether he's going to be loyal to, the studio system, who's kind of blackballed Brad Pitt's character, or whether he's going to, stay his friend and allow him to be his chauffeur now, stuff like that. And it just goes down the list, Jojo Rabbit, there's, Jojo finds that there's a, World War II, and he finds that there's a little girl in his attic, and so now his devotion is tested with his mom, because if he turns in the girl, he'll turn in his mom, as well as turning in this girl, who he begins to befriend. So in each of the movies, there was just, all the movies had this as a central theme of devotion being tested. So that was kind of the first place I started, was just really thinking, okay, well, God, what are you trying to tell us as far as how we're going to have our devotion tested? Like, it seems like what you're saying is whatever we're devoted to, that's going to be tested, right? Mm-hmm. But it was always in the context of sort of relational aspects of things, like relational context. It was always like these two people, like this person. And so one day I woke up and I just realized, God just put in my brain the idea of being your brother's keeper, right? And when I connected that thought to this idea of being devotion tested, the statement that I presented that night was this. I'm going to read it from my slide. I said, to remain a we, which is bigger, broader question that we're asking is, will we be a we? We've been asking that question in the Oscars ever since the election. This bigger, broader question. Ironically enough, before Trump, we were asking the question, the broader question was, will we survive? And will we make a comeback? After the election, the question shifted and became, will we be a we?
Yeah.
The weird thing is, this year, it changed from will we be a we to will we end up a we? Like, will we stay a we? Which was really one of those ones where I went, what is that going to say?
And by a we, you mean like, will we stay unified, united, together? Okay. Cool.
Which makes sense, after the election, because that's when we all went,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of providential that God, again, one of the things I want to say that if I don't say this, I'll kick myself later, is you have to realize that when I'm talking about the movies that were up for Oscars this year, they were released last year. They were conceived 5 years ago, 3 to 5 years ago, and we're in production all these years. So the reason that this is transcendent, the reason this is only God, and if you talk to anybody in Hollywood who would say, oh, well, my movie is going to be nominated for Oscars, everybody would laugh at you because there's no way you can guarantee that, right? So the fact that these movies were made a long time ago, or were released the year before, were made a long time ago, or conceived a long time ago, and nobody can predict the Oscars, just really makes me think that only God could put together this collection of films to say these things, right?
Yeah.
So,
hold on one sec. So some people are kind of tuning in. They're coming late. So just so you guys know, I'm talking to Bryan Coley. Bryan has been involved in film and television and movies and storytelling and writing for most, if not all, of his adult life. And has one of the things he's really tapped into in the past few years is how God speaks to us through these Oscar-nominated movies. And Bryan and I were talking about the Oscar-nominated films from this year back in January, and he was saying things that I could not believe would start playing out the way they're playing out over the last week or so. And so that's what we're talking about. So anyway, Bryan, you're jumping in, you're saying, so you saw all these things kind of leading to this year's question, right? Every year, the Oscars, there's a theme, and they're all asking kind of America a question, right? And you would you say that's God's question?
Definitely.
Okay.
I definitely think it's his dramatic question that he kind of gives us each year.
Okay.
In my mind.
So go with that. So what's God's? What did you feel like back in January or even before that, because you were working on it? And like you said, these films took years to get made.
Yeah.
So what was the question that God was forecasting into this year as you saw it?
Yeah, I'm literally reading from the slides that I presented that night, okay?
In January.
In January. I put in the midst of escalating war and battles, so a lot of these movies had sort of fighting and battles. If you think of Marriage Story, it's a divorce battle. If you think of 1917, it's a literal battle, right? Like there's these kind of fighting that's going on within it. For the sake of our children, so in a lot of these movies, children are dealing with things way above their pay grade. So that's the first part that I put. But this is the part that hits home for today. We have to test our devotions to determine if we will be our brother and sister's keeper.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look at that, in all of these movies, the concept of being your brother or sister's keeper was in every single movie. And even like a movie like Joker, let's say, is the cautionary tale of that. In fact, almost half of the movies were cautionary tales against not being your brother's keeper, and the other half were, ultimately ended with the person being their brother's keeper, which kind of is a little scary because it wasn't like all of them were like, oh, they all ended with everybody being their brother's keeper, which might say something about where we're headed, as to there's going to be some of us who are and some of us who aren't.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I saw this that night through political lens, right? Like, that's the cool thing about this is I have my own lens, right? So for me, I thought 1917 should have won. I thought it was all about getting out of our trenches politically, testing our devotions politically, and figuring out whether we would end up being our brother's keeper, whether we would, somehow, test all these political and social and moral things that we have to say, is it more important that we care for each other and come together, right?
Yeah.
And become a we. So I thought it was political, and then and if you remember, 1917 was supposed to win. If you read any press, it was supposed to win.
Yeah.
And then Parasite upset the whole shebang, right? I use the word shebang. I don't think I've ever used that word.
That's fine. It's we're just we're out here without a net. So yeah, like I didn't think Parasite was going to win. All the sort of like cinephiles that I knew wanted Parasite to win. I didn't even see Parasite. And I thought about it like you thought about it, I think, which was like, oh, it's 1917, right? Like that's the way we're going. This is a political question. Am I my brother's keeper? And then Parasite wins, and what happens?
So Parasite, if you've seen the movie, if you haven't, I'll give you a little glimpse, is a South Korean movie. It's definitely dealing with classism. So it's about this rich family. It's about this poor family. Ultimately, the poor family kind of finds a way to kind of band together. It depends on how you look at it, but ultimately, they kind of help each other into the lives of this rich family to become like a parasite to them. They're living off of them by finding jobs within the household of the family, from being the driver to being the tutor to being the house person. They kind of get rid of the old ones so that they can come in and each person in the family can take over those jobs.
Yeah.
But it's a definite look at what I would say is a cautionary tale of what it looks like when the economic or the financial aspect of this comes into play, and we reveal the lack of being our brother's keeper when it comes to when we have to fight for our survival economically.
Yeah.
So it's a movie that actually was showing us a cautionary, like, this is what it looks like to have to go, basically, fend for yourself and, look after yourself in the midst of, even the poor family. At one point in the movie, it's a beautiful moment. If you only saw this moment in the movie, you'd see its relevance. Is the poor family's basement apartment that they live in gets totally flooded, and they are just washed out, and they end up in a schoolroom. And the rich family hasn't been affected by it at all, because they live in a wealthy part of the city and stuff like that. And they're calling this boy and saying, "Can you come to this special party we're having?" And stuff like that. And he's sitting in a mass of people who are dealing with tremendous issues of survival. And the person who's rich is just like, "Oh, we're trying to put together this birthday party," and just clueless. And so the classism issue that movie reveals, to me, was the reason that God gave that the Oscar winner in my mind, and did not do the 1917 about politics. So if you think about what we're dealing with right now, and I love it because when you look at the things that are happening in our community right now, where we see the Mark Cubans who are saying, "I'm going to pay for my employees to still be at work," all the things we're seeing that way, I'm like, man, this is playing out halfway good, right? And that right now is playing out halfway good. There's a lot of people stepping in, and we're going to make sure that the equivalent in Parasite that poor family is taken care of, right? But it's revealing all this class issues, right? We're now looking at how it affects hourly wagers. We're looking at that we have classism in our country, and I'm not trying to get on a soapbox about that, because that is not my. When we start talking about things like that, then I'm just a movie guy, right?
Sure.
But for me, I just keep seeing it playing out over and over again. Like Parasite is playing out realistically in our world right now, where we're revealing that classism. We're revealing how in the midst of this virus that there is going to be a sense of, of how some people will go through the virus like, oh, we're still having our birthday party, we're still having our prom, we're still having, like things like that are already realities when people look at their social media right now and go, well, not affecting you, but it's really affecting me. Like I'm at home, like Elizabeth, I think who's on this right now. She said to me something yesterday. She said, "Can you imagine? This is gonna make me tear up. Can you imagine the people who have abusive fathers, or and they can't escape? Or they used to escape to school, but they can't escape now.
Yeah.
And to me, that issue of both class and all kinds of things that we don't think about, of how can we be our brother's keeper right now, is God, I believe, really prophesied that to say our devotion will be tested. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up about this, is this morning I woke up and I thought, you know what? We're pretty good as people for a certain length of time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're pretty good at being philanthropic, of caring for our brothers for a certain length of time. And I wonder whether that devotion being tested that God has sort of talked about in these Oscars is about a month from now, is about a couple of weeks from now, when we're kind of going, you know what, I'm okay, like I'm tired of social distancing, affecting my life, and I'm tired of, like this economic thing is affecting me, and I've got to look out for myself now. And almost like the parasite family, we become more of the tragedy of it, where we start doing things out of self-interest and trying to protect our family, which I understand that, but then we lose our brother's keeper. We lose the fact that we're our brother's keeper.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. You did a great job. I'm gonna have you do something. For me, your connection's a little funky. Is mine like that for you right now?
No, it's not.
Why don't you? I'm gonna X you out. Why don't you call back in, and let's see if we can get a better connection. I don't know what happened. While I'm waiting for Bryan to call back in, I hope that was helpful. I know some of you guys stayed on for most of this. If you have questions for Bryan or comments or anything you want to say, you can just write them right here. And hey, Lou, and we'll take them. If you're on Facebook and you want to put them in, your questions in, you can. We're going to post both these videos. So if you have questions or comments, again, you guys can continue to do that. I think I'm going to ask Bryan when he gets back in here in a minute. Here he comes. I'm going to ask him when he comes back in to just sort of summarize what he feels like film is saying God's question is for us right now. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about responding to it. There you are. There's your beautiful non-pixelated face. All right, Bryan. So I don't know if you heard. I'm coming through your stuff. That's the problem. But let me get you to summarize the question. So through Parasite, give us what do you feel like is the question that God's posing our culture with, American culture with, right now? And then maybe we can talk a little bit about what do we think the church's answer needs to be to that question. Is that cool?
Yeah, I don't have any other question than what I said back in January, which I really feel like God is saying, in the midst of, what's happening right now, will we test our devotion and to everything, from the standpoint to our finances, to everything in our lives, to see if we will be our brother's keeper.
Yeah.
Like that's the question. There is one little footnote though that I think is so important, and when this hit me this past weekend, and it was just like a ton of bricks. And that is that when I did a slide, I put for the sake of our children, and I thought, you know what, this is that defining moment, right? That our children's children will hear about. This is what 9/11 was to us, where we go back and look, well, where were we when this was happening? What were we doing, right? This is that defining moment for our children, no matter kind of what age they are, and they will remember what we did in this moment, right? And if we were our brother's keeper in this moment, I think God is trying to say, what we're dealing with right now is way above the pay grade of our children right now. It's way above. In fact, all these movies have children in it in which they're dealing with things that are way above their pay grade. They should not be dealing with divorce. They should not be dealing with death, all these things that are in these movies, but they are dealing with it. And our children are doing the same thing right now. They're dealing with things that are way above pay grade as far as what we're experiencing as a country just by having the television on, right? And so we need to be especially diligent, I think, as believers, as Christians, just as humanity, to be able to say, how will our children remember this moment by virtue of what we were doing? How will they remember us? And how will then, in 25 years, 20 years, how will it change their character as to what kind of people they're going to be because they saw what we were doing right now?
That's good.
And so I think that's just why I think God was speaking louder through these Oscars this year to say, this is really important that you test your devotions right now to realize that a lot of things are going to come into play. With Parasite, I think it's going to be economically and financially, and so our biggest devotion is going to be to our wallet and our paychecks and all kinds of things, and then realizing that that is going to be a difference maker as far as being our brother's keeper.
That's good. That's really good. Hey, I'm going to let you hop off. I kept you for a little while longer than I intended to. I'm going to let you hop off and let maybe other people call in if they have things to say, have questions or stuff like that. And then also let people post questions or thoughts. I may share a few minutes more, a little bit about how I think that plays out for the church, some things I feel like the Lord's been teaching me in the midst of this. But thank you. If people want to know more about Real or want to catch what you're writing or videos you're putting out, what do they need to do?
Yeah, so we're realexperiences.com is the website, and then I'm horrible at social media and things, but I think it's Real Experiences Digital is some of our handles, and Real Experiences is the other one. So you can look it up there, and then I don't do Instagram.
Yeah, that's okay. They're doing Real's doing some. They're on the front edge of some really cool app sort of in-home / Zoom oriented experiences that they're working on. You guys were kind of working on it before all this hit because Bryan's a prophet, so you guys can check out Bryan at those places. Realexperience.com. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, if I was to say anything that's sort of a commercial right now,
do it.
It's not really commercial. It's that there are going to be a lot of places of work right now in which there are teams that you're going to have people who are really dealing with how they, keep their people cared for, and we're a great way to be able to do that. We're a way where we can really help the hearts of people right now by allowing movies something really fun to get your team back engaged and to really help your team through that. We're trying to do something virtually so it can be done online, but we're also when this is passed, this too shall pass, getting those teams back to working again.
It's good.
But having a time in which they can decompress as a group of people, a group of human beings. So
that's
hopefully
good.
this is a time in which we feel like there's going to be a relational recession, and we feel like we're the cure for that.
Yeah, relational recession, that's for sure. So, yeah, cool. So if y'all want to get in touch with Bryan, do that. You saw that Elizabeth posted, realexperiences.com. That may be a quick and easy way. Or if you even want a quicker and easier way, if you send me a message, I'll make sure that I connect you with Bryan. So thank you, Bryan Coley. You got your son coming in on a plane, and you got to get ready for him.
Man, he's been in England. I'm glad he's leaving England.
Yeah. Tell him I love him, and tell him I love him, and I'll talk to y'all later. All right. See you, man. So just a couple of things, kind of sum up. I'm gonna flip you guys back over here now, Facebook, if you're still there. Thank you guys, those of you tuned in for even a little bit, being a part of this. Hey, Carly. And just a couple of things on that. Kind of one of the big reasons I wanted to have Bryan talk to us is that Bryan was, again, texting me weeks ago that he thought this coronavirus thing was what God was speaking to in terms of this year's Oscars. And I was like, I don't think it is. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Super smart me. But I think one of the encouraging things for me is to know that God's not surprised by things. God is constantly preparing our hearts and our minds for things. I know a few months ago we had a decision. Probably my people will remind me. It's like November or December for Highlands, and we were having to decide what to do with some money that we needed to spend. And when I was praying one day, the story that came to my mind was Joseph. And when God gave Pharaoh the dreams and used Joseph to tell him, "Hey, you're in a time of abundance, and you don't need to spend everything that you have. You need to save it so that you can be a refuge for people when a time of famine comes." And I had no idea that it would be as soon as it was. But we made some decisions around that for Highlands that have helped us, that have helped us right now to be able to care for people in the community, to be able to be our brothers keepers in the community. And so, all that to say, I think what God desires is just listening hearts during this time. And it's hard to listen. I know the second that, hey, Lacey, the second that you're quiet, um, is the second that my mind starts spinning in all the negative ways. But to ask God to come and inhabit that time with you and to speak into it because He will speak into it. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing that I would say is in total agreement with Bryan is that this is a time where if we want to judge ourselves as followers of Jesus, the question is, what kind of brothers and sisters are we going to be? You have the story of the prodigal son in the New Testament that Jesus tells as an image of the love of God and what should be the love of humanity. And you have an older brother who is really angry with his younger brother's poor decisions. And really has a hardened heart. He's doing all the quote unquote right things, but he's not loving. And so the right thing done without love is still the wrong thing. Is ultimately what Jesus says in that story. And I heard one pastor say that that really Jesus is the better older brother in that story. That in the story of the prodigal son, Jesus is the older brother who goes and finds his younger brother and brings him home, even while he's still a long way off. And so, my encouragement to you, if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus, is to follow him in terms of brotherhood, in terms of sisterhood, and whatever it means, not irresponsibly. We're not all experts, and we're not all good to be out, but responsibly, whatever it means to go find your brothers and sisters. Go find them, call them, reach out to them, FaceTime them. If you need a resource to connect, tell me. We're investing in some right now. Help them, send them something from Amazon. Um, but be your brother's keeper, be your sister's keeper during this time because a lot of people feel a long way off. A lot of people are afraid, and fear plays out in different ways. It plays out as sadness, it plays out as isolation, it plays out as anger, it plays out as bravado. Some of the people that puff their chest the most do so because they're afraid, and we're all afraid. Like honestly, because we're confused. We don't know what's coming next, and if we act like we do, we're pretending. But God does. He does know what's coming next. Not that He caused it, but He knows it. And so the best things we could do is draw near to Him, let Him love us, and then go out and give that away. I love you guys. I appreciate you tuning in for this. I hope it was somewhat helpful. We're going to try to do more things like this. Part of it is people just need things to do. People need things to watch. People need things to be encouraged by. So yeah, maybe I'll bring Bryan on, and we'll bring some of you guys on, and maybe we'll do some sort of look at your favorite movies and talk about what they might mean. So anyway, I love you guys. Please reach out in any way If we can help you right now, if we can encourage you right now, if we can build you up in any way, reach out. Lonnie Jones, I love you, brother. Thank you. And I'll talk to you guys later. All right. Have to do that. Do that.